They thought it was just an ordinary supply ship. But in the calm waters of the Red Sea, an American ghost ship was struck, and just seconds later, a storm of war nearly erupted. Welcome to Power Insider, where we uncover the truth behind the most intense modern military scenarios. It was dawn in April 2025 on the calm Red Sea, a morning that seemed peaceful in the vast ocean where tension and ceasefire intersected. Just a few days ago, a fragile ceasefire between the United States and Houthi forces was announced. There have been no direct attacks, and neither side wants to escalate the situation. But does that sense of security really protect anyone from making mistakes? Can it stop silent drones from approaching from afar? And above all, has suspicion ever truly disappeared from these waters? Beneath the deep blue waves, a dark silhouette moved silently. That was the USS New Mexico, a state-of-the-art Virginia-class submarine of the U.S. Navy, diving at a depth of over 230 feet below the surface. This submarine doesn't just observe. It listens, waiting in the deadly silence that defines underwater warfare. No one knows exactly where it is, but its presence always keeps the enemy on edge. Onshore Houthi sonar officers were sweeping the surface of the water. Suddenly, they detected a strong signal: no escort ships, no protective cover in sight. A bright dot was moving slowly along the coast of Yemen. The Houthis thought it was an American supply ship, and this was the perfect moment to strike. They hurriedly launched an unmanned underwater vehicle packed with explosives, hoping to make a big impact. But they had no idea that the target they were aiming for was far more significant than an ordinary supply ship. That is an extremely dangerous target. Any mistake could result in the entire area being engulfed in gunfire and flames. The USS New Mexico submarine was undamaged with only minor contact to its hull. However, in the world of submarines, simply being detected is already a failure. Even the slightest contact, such as a clumsy UUV brushing past, is enough to trigger every emergency alarm system. At this point, the issue is no longer just a scratch on the steel, but the significance of the event itself. An American strategic submarine was attacked right in the middle of a conflict zone while the ceasefire was still in effect. This is a blow to the reputation and pride of the entire United States. In the eyes of the U.S. military, submarines are not just equipment, they're strategic symbols. Even an accidental collision would force commanders to activate a top-secret principle: the doctrine of disproportionate deterrence. Instead of responding in kind, the United States will react at a much higher level, forcing any party that attempts to repeat such actions to reconsider their entire survival strategy. This isn't just about military action, it's high-level psychological warfare. It's a warning shot that echoes all the way to the strategy tables of powers much bigger than the Houthis. The ceasefire, which had only been in effect for a few days, was already extremely fragile. It relied mostly on mutual restraint, was unofficial, and offered no guarantees against any accidents. No provision mentions underwater drones, and no one dares to bring up American submarines, as that's an entirely different category. These vessels are not just ordinary weapons. They are vital strategic assets, platforms for housing cruise missiles, gathering intelligence, and even supporting the most elite special operations teams. Touching them means touching the very core of America's military power, a decision no one dares to take lightly. USS New Mexico didn't surface, didn't fire back, and didn't make any noise because all signals had already been transmitted to the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group in less than 3 seconds. From that point on, every protocol had to be implemented immediately. No one asked whether it was an accident or intentional, because every action had to be handled as if it were the worst-case scenario. At this moment, all eyes are fixed on the still surface of the water, where even the smallest mistake could spark a new storm in a sea that has never truly known peace. As soon as the U.S. submarine's sensor system detects an unusual signal, whether it's sound heat or a magnetic anomaly, all the data is immediately transmitted directly to command. And when the threat is confirmed, everything changes. No one says, "Let's wait and see," because in the Red Sea, hesitation means death. While the Houthi fighters were still confused, unsure of what their underwater drone had actually hit, American analysts had already traced its point of origin, its route, and might even know who programmed that drone. With the support of AI and a global sensor network, the US ISR intelligence surveillance reconnaissance system goes beyond simply identifying flight paths. They reverse engineer the control algorithms, trace the source code, and even detect code sequences identical to software previously found in Iran, Syria, or Russian military proxy networks. This is no longer just a conflict with the Houthis. It's a three-layered game where the UUV is merely a pawn, while the real mastermind sits thousands of miles away. And every electronic signal that gets exposed becomes a map leading straight to the shadowy player pulling the strings. Accident or intentional, just one collision with an American submarine is enough to set the war machine in motion. And this time, that machine won't stop. The vessel they collided with was no ordinary submarine. It was the USS New Mexico SSN 779, a symbol of Virginia-class power built solely to dominate the depths of the ocean. If the Houthis had known what they were getting themselves into, they probably would have picked a different target from the start. Take a closer look to see the true power of the USS New Mexico, a nuclear-powered vessel capable of staying submerged for months at a time without needing to surface for air or refuel. It silently glides beneath the ocean like a true phantom, its hull coated with a special rubber layer that absorbs sonar waves, rendering enemy tracking systems almost useless. The pump jet engine replaces the traditional propeller, making it virtually invisible in the ocean. No noise, no trace. You'll only know the USS New Mexico was ever there, long after it's gone. Not only is the USS New Mexico stealthy, but it's also powerful enough to strike back at any adversary. Armed with Tomahawk cruise missiles, Mark 48 torpedoes, and the ability to deploy special operations teams through a sealed compartment, it's truly a deep-sea predator, and often serves as a crucial link in a much larger coordinated combat system, intelligence-gathering, threat mapping, and hunting enemy submarines. But here's where it gets intense. As the underwater UAV approached, the USS New Mexico didn't panic or make any evasive maneuvers. The submarine quietly carried out its well-practiced drills when the sonar operator detected a strange signal, small in size, moving slowly, but displaying clear aggression. It wasn't a mine, and definitely not drifting debris. It was something controlled heading straight toward them. A gentle, almost silent maneuver steered the vessel away, narrowly avoiding a direct collision. The UAV only managed to scrape along the ship's side and didn't explode, but even that was enough for the entire crew to realize the real battle had begun. There were no shouted orders. Everyone knew their tasks by heart, every move drilled week after week. A silent command passed through the data packet was uploaded, and the secure communication channel activated. Meanwhile, the world above the waves had yet to realize that the game of power had officially changed. In the quiet darkness of the Indian Ocean, the Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group isn't just observing, they're actively engaged, utilizing the most advanced tactical data systems, course, speed, sonar readings, and every launch trajectory are transmitted in real time, second by second. Right there on the USS New Mexico submarine, the crew couldn't yet determine whether this was a deliberate attack or just an accident, but they knew one thing for sure: the United States would not remain silent and take it. In an instant, as soon as the unmanned underwater vehicle made contact with the ship's hull, the entire Eisenhower Group's alarm system lit up. No one here just waits for things to happen, they take action immediately. Inside the Combat Operations Center aboard the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the alarm didn't sound as a voice, and there wasn't a moment's hesitation. just streams of raw data sonar returns, contact reports, and most importantly, the detection of an unidentified underwater object. An unknown UUV. It was closing in. This wasn't a drill, this was the real thing. Immediately, the radar system on the Eisenhower began sweeping and rotating continuously. The destroyers in the group simultaneously activated their detection equipment for both surface and underwater tracking. The electronic warfare team activated a jamming program to blind the enemy, while the Aegis combat system calculated firing solutions in case the situation worsened. No one is panicking. This is simply preparation for any unexpected situation. They understand that while a ceasefire may exist on paper, if an American submarine is affected whether by accident or on purpose, the entire situation could be turned upside down at any moment. At that time, the USS Gravely, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, increased its sonar power, sweeping the surrounding waters to search more thoroughly for traces of other underwater drones. At the Djibouti base, a P-8 Poseidon aircraft takes off, equipped with powerful anti-submarine capabilities and advanced sensors. In the sky, a fleet of EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft circled high above, ready to disable enemy radar and shield every American movement under a veil of electronic fog. The U.S. Navy's rules of engagement are very clear. If a strategic asset is threatened even just once, there must be an immediate response. While the world was still unaware, the U.S. military had already launched a top-priority response plan, precise, efficient, and as restrained as possible. They called it Operation Deep Pinpoint. Not retaliation, not escalation, just eliminating the threat and sending an unmistakable message. The first order echoed through Eisenhower's command room: prepare the multi-domain strike package. This meant combining sea-launched cruise missiles with coordinated air support. The sole objective: neutralize the UUV launch site and deliver a silent warning powerful enough to deter any observing adversaries. On the deck of the USS Gravely, the hatches of the vertical launch system swung open. The Tomahawk missile locked onto secret GPS coordinates, a fortified facility west of Ras Issa, believed by intelligence to be the control center for deep-water drones. In the sky, the E-2D Hawkeye surveillance aircraft circles the perimeter, continuously serving as the eyes of the entire operation. Not even the smallest detail escapes the control of the Eisenhower squadron. Everything operates like a symphony of war. Let anyone who dares to test the waters understand that America will never stand by when its strategic interests are threatened. In the chaotic skies above the Red Sea, everything unfolds like a cinematic symphony of artistry and power. First, the EA-18G Growlers moved in specialized electronic warfare jets that silently jammed all communication channels and blinded every enemy radar system. That was the fierce opening strike, paving the way for the next wave, the real damaging attack. 4 F/A-18 Super Hornet fighter jets took off from the deck of the Eisenhower aircraft carrier, fully armed with GBU-38, JDM smart bombs, and AGM-154 JSOW long-range missiles. Each type of weapon is a technological masterpiece designed to destroy fixed targets with near-perfect accuracy from distances of dozens of miles. This campaign relies not only on strength, but also on timing and flawless coordination down to the very last second. The Growler flies in first, emitting dense jamming signals that blanket all the frequencies controlled by the Houthi rebels. Coastal satellite stations suddenly went dark, and the defense radars went blind. In that moment, the entire enemy command system was plunged into chaos. Immediately afterward, 4 Super Hornets skimmed along the enemy coastline, flying low over the water to avoid any remaining surveillance. 3 key targets were identified: a UUV control center near the city of Ras Issa, a communication station supporting drone navigation, and a hidden weapons depot detected through thermal reconnaissance. The Tomahawk missiles were launched first fast, precise, and silent. Each one pierced through the reinforced roof and detonated after a brief delay, exploding deep within the target structure. The next second, a JDAM bomb plunged down from an altitude of 20,000 feet silent until the very last moment. Violent explosions erupted with fire and smoke engulfing the coastline. The most remarkable thing, there was absolutely no return fire, no radar signals, not a single air defense response. The message couldn't have been clearer. The target was taken completely by surprise. The Houthi forces never expected a submarine to get so close, and they couldn't have imagined that a devastating counterattack would unfold in just a few short minutes. The message is clear to every observer from Tehran and Damascus to Moscow. If anyone targets the wrong objective, the sky will come crashing down on them. The entire operation lasted less than 7 minutes, with 3 targets eliminated and no losses on the American side. However, the greatest impact doesn't just come from the destruction itself, but from the blow dealt to the enemy's morale and command structure, a wound that is not easily healed in modern warfare. On the communication channels intercepted by the Americans, the tense silence was quickly replaced by chaos, fragmented orders units disappearing from the network, some trying to reconnect on backup frequencies, while the rest were completely wiped off the battlefield map. The organization that had operated those UUVs has now gone silent. Overhead, American MQ-4C Triton surveillance drones continue their relentless watch scanning for every heat signature, any movement on land or radio wave in the area. And that collection of data, more than any bomb, changed the game in the Red Sea in the blink of an eye. But there was another consequence even more dangerous than physical destruction, disrupting the enemy's command nervous system. When the control center was wiped out, the chain of command fell into a state of head-cut-off legs in chaos. The Houthi fighter groups are cut off from central command, unable to receive orders, and unaware of their comrades' locations. Analysts call this the command paralysis effect, which turns opponents into disconnected links easily neutralized without firing another shot. This is exactly the kind of warfare the U.S. is aiming for, taking down the operating system instead of just attacking the hard outer shell. Armed pickup trucks sped out of the compound at a frantic pace, scattering in all directions. Some weaved deep inland, while others stalled on the sandy beach. Not a single person stayed behind to defend the place. This isn't a massive assault with warheads, nor is it a campaign to seize territory or a strike meant to wipe out all infrastructure. This is a message, not a gentle reminder, but a bullet grazing your temple. You can shoot down a drone. You could even take aim at a warship. However, under no circumstances should you touch the submarine. Not in international waters, not near the carrier strike group, and especially not without immediately facing the consequences. The White House has remained silent, making no official statement. However, the message from the U.S. Central Command is loud and clear. Diplomatic solutions are always the top priority, but any threatening action targeting American assets will be met with a strong response. In other words, we're still watching. Try it again, and we won't hold back. Immediately afterward, the battlefield fell into an uneasy calm. American submarines urgently changed their patrol routes. Carrier strike groups simultaneously increased their layers of defense and air escort, and allies from France to the United Kingdom tightened their coordination along the Red Sea corridor. Even the Houthi propaganda channels have suddenly gone unusually silent. No more victory videos, no more boasting about shooting down aircraft. All that's left are the same old worn-out clips, played over and over again with no evidence that matches what actually happened. This time, the incident has been completely erased from public discussion, because now everyone in the Houthi ranks, from the drone launch team and radar crew to the communications operators, understands this. If you target something underwater, you're playing with fire. And next time, it might not just be a warning shot, but the big question remains unanswered. Was it all just a technological accident, or was everything orchestrated from the start? Suppose that underwater robot never actually targeted the supply ship, and the real target had been precisely identified all along. Then the Houthis or the advisors behind them clearly knew exactly what they were doing. If this is a probing move, a test signal, then it's clear that the rules of the game have shifted not just in the Red Sea, but across the entire landscape of underwater warfare worldwide. In the world of submarines, actual capability sometimes matters more than intent. As long as you can prove you're able to get that close, no matter what your original intentions were, a red line has been crossed. For the United States Navy, that is unacceptable. Virginia-class submarines are not just instruments of war. They are strategic, eyes and ears, serving as the spearhead ready to fight on the front lines. They never surface for photographs, nor do they ever reveal their position. Silence is the submarine's strongest armor. If their location is exposed, or worse, if they are approached, it's a failure that can never be undone. And if the Houthis even just once managed to touch a U.S. submarine with a UUV, a dangerous door will have been opened, and it will be very hard to close. Because next time, it might not just be a gentle warning touch. Imagine the harsh sound of a collision echoing along the side of the ship. It could be an explosion, a long gash torn into the hull, or even a direct hit, a moment when negotiations or ceasefire orders become meaningless because all rules are thrown out the window. You can shoot down a drone and use it for propaganda purposes. Even a warship with minor damage can have the truth distorted. But when a submarine gets hit, that's a whole different story. If you think this couldn't happen in the depths of the ocean, remember, underwater drones are no longer just a vision of the future, they're already in use. Submarines like the USS New Mexico are quietly patrolling right now. But the scariest thing is that no one knows for sure if this was really an accident. Some analyses suggest that the collision was actually part of a series of scenarios designed to test response times, combat strategies, and the frequency of American aircraft deployments. If that's the case, then this is no longer a technological clash, but rather a cold political and military test. And if it happens again, it might not end with a deterrence campaign. It could mark the beginning of an irreversible escalation. Just one wrong signal, a mistaken identification, or a single hasty decision in a sealed control room where there's no second chance to fix a mistake can change everything in an instant. So, do you think the Houthis would actually dare to attack a U.S. submarine? Share your thoughts in the comments. Will underwater drones become the next big threat? Or are submarines still too dangerous, like untouchable ghosts for anyone to mess with? Leave your comments. We read every single word you write. If this scenario made you think, or if it helped you better imagine what could happen in underwater battles, give us a like to let us know you're still with us. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to discover more real-life stories, authentic military technology, and tactical analyses based on the most realistic scenarios. And if you'd like to support us even more, join the fleet. You'll get a membership badge, priority responses, and the chance to help us bring even more stories from the depths of the ocean to the surface. Just click join on the channel's homepage, and you'll officially become part of this journey. See you in the next scenarios. Keep a cool head, keep a steady hand, because sometimes the greatest threat is the one you never see coming. This is Power Insider. We analyze what others only dare to whisper about.